again. Episode 17, South DaCola podcast. We're going to keep it basic tonight. I try to bring on a guest next show. I have somebody in mind, but
I got it. What's the accent that you just said? You got a longing for Czech.
There's a new administration coming into Sioux Falls next week, so I gotta change this shit up a little bit.
No, the new mayor changes his name.
Yes.
You change your voice. I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It checks out.
And so we have the host whose name we will not speak. Dun, dun, dun.
And I'm not changing that for the new administration.
Okay, good. Yeah. You're angling for a job, aren't you? You are. I heard some of the things you've been up to. And then Robert Mehling, of course.
Hey.
So, I guess we're going to talk about...
We do a little election post-mortem.
Oh! Yeah, that's a good idea!
It's almost like we had this conversation before.
Oh, like 100 times over the past week? I don't know, with like 1 million people? What happened?
I gotta go back to my text messages to make sure I don't contradict anything I've said.
Okay, so let's start out with the one that I was very disappointed in. I really wish Zach would have won. The 149 vote thing, that sucked. And, you know, it was hard to say anything bad about either candidate. Kurt, Sale is a retired firefighter, former union president and of the firefighters, and
a good guy. It would have been really fun to watch Zach.
Yeah, and the crazy part about it was, well, Zach didn't win, but Kurt spent a lot more money. He had the union backing and their money. He had a huge donor list of all the banksters and developers in town. And on election day, he had former state's attorney Dave Nelson do a robocall for him. Obviously, Dave Nelson was the chair of Heather's campaign when he ran for mayor.
Wow.
And so I always knew that there was, I think the union support and the Dave Nelson robocall kind of put Kurt over the top. But it still surprises me with how much piling on that Sale did that he only beat Zach by 149 votes. It seems like there's more. Zach learned from the experience. He told me, he goes, I was mad for about 30 minutes, and then I just said, he still wants to be very active, a lot more active in the community, keep going to council meetings, keep learning, so we'll get him on the council eventually or on some elected position. I told him he should apply to be on some city boards and stuff. So
that's a good idea.
I was disappointed because very excited that Janet got on the council, and I guess now that Sale made it, there's been a line drawn in the sand. I guess the council is already kind of having some behind the scenes arguments about stuff already. So
really.
Yes, so it's going to be interesting to see how this works, especially with the new mayor. Now, the mayoral race, and please chime in if you want to. How many ways can you react wrong to something? And it frustrates me because I supported Jolene. I thought she was, out of the two, I originally voted for Jameson, but out of the two in the runoff, I really felt that she was the better candidate just because there's nothing that I've heard about Jolene's past. Well, there's been a couple things, but nothing that's going to make me not want to vote for her, where the opposite was for Tenhaken. But he seemed to just brush everything off. Like, you could tell that Paul had been part of campaigns before because he kind of knew how to just... whatever. Because people were even, saying, good, she's so mean to Paul, his voicemail wasn't mean. It's like, it was the fact that he sent the voicemail.
Well, yeah, you should never have left a voicemail.
Right, that's intimidation.
Call, don't leave a message.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of calling is so that there's nothing that things technically, could be, that would be he said, she said.
Or you say, call me, please.
Right. Or, that's why you didn't email because you didn't want a paper trail. But, you call and leave a voicemail, then you've got the trail. He could have just called and not left a message. just like people do all over the country. Nobody ever really leaves a voicemail anymore. So that was a very interesting development in the news cycles that just sort of happened over that, where Letcher only released a part of it and then just some of the transcript, and then releasing the whole thing. I think that she may have overstepped in her characterization of it as a threat. And I understand that is something that that a person feels. Really, and I, certainly wasn't a fan of the voicemail.
Well, you're running for office, though.
No, I know, and I can certainly see the intimidation angle on it. But I think when you use the word, threaten, people are expecting some anger, in the voice, and he just sounded, like, oh golly gee,
you're my friend.
Why, I've known you for 15 years. Why are you slinging some mud at me? I got tools on dirt on everybody, and I'm not using it.
And he had Pat Powers blogging crap about her every day. It goes back to she should have reported the hacking. I mean, when her financial records are being threatened, you go to the bank first, and then if that's not good, you go to the authorities. But she should have never said anything about it to the public, and she should have never said anything about the voicemail to the public. She should have just blew it off. Paul was able to just blow everything off, brush everything off.
She needed to do something though, and I guess I would have stuck to the email or to the voicemail thing. She needed to do something because she was coming up from a pretty big deficit. She needed something that could have potentially become a game changer. And I think it did. I think her whole final week ended up becoming a game changer, and that's why you ended up seeing one of the widest margins of victory.
She lost votes that
city of
she
Sioux
had
Falls.
in the general.
Right. I mean, the central district, from my reading of analysis of it, flipped from not supporting 10 Haken to supporting 10 Haken.
Well, and when the FOP came out with their thing against the precincts, she seemed offended. And she should have came out and just said, I saw the FOP report. This is the police union. I'm not going to implement any major changes to the police department without doing a full study. I'm not just going to walk into the mayor's office and on May 16th I'm going to implement a precinct thing. And she should have just said, it's a plan, it's an idea that I'm exploring. And left it at that. Instead, she came on this full throttle, defending the precincts, going on, and it's like, all you gotta do is tell the public, it's just an idea. We're not implementing anything yet. It's not a big deal.
I think her biggest thing is when 10 Haken, insinuating that she was making up police support for it. And it very easily could be that there is police support among leadership for precinct stuff, or at least no opposition to it, and then among the rank and file through the FOP, some resistance and not wanting to accept that kind of a form. And both would be right, that there's police support for it and police support against it from two. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't. Anyway. No, it doesn't really matter. So I think
the council and the mayor are the ones
right.
that decide.
No, I know, and I think her sort of digging down deeper and coming out, as you'd say, a little bit defensive about that, goes back to the Rotary debate when it was insinuated that she was making up the support in the conversations that she had with police leadership about precinct policing. And I've got no opinion of precinct policing. It
works in some communities, it doesn't. That's what I said. If she would have just came out and said, it's something we're exploring, she could have went on farther to say, ultimately, thank you for the input from the FOP, but frankly, I make the ultimate decision. The council makes the decision whether to fund it or not. And that's how I'm going to make decisions. And that's how I would have spun it. And, she kind of...
I can certainly understand, FOP's position. I mean, they've been sort of in administration's past, as current administration that we're in right now.
Yeah, they're not a big fan
of
and
I know that the council, tried to retroactive their raises and stuff. Some of them, so I think that's one thing that the new administration should probably, work on is a better show of good faith with our public service employees.
Mm-hmm. And there does need something else does need to be done. Is it precincts? I don't know. But I think that 10 Haken is considering doing something else. So, that's all well and good, and it just comes back to, how you kind of have to react to this. And the one thing I said on the Lally show today was she should have never, some say, well, Paul shouldn't have had the Republican Party get involved. Well, they're the dominant party in the state. Of course they're going to get involved. But if I was Jolene, I would have registered as an independent. I would have never told anybody I was a Democrat. If it came up and someone said, well, you used to be a registered Democrat, you'd say, used to be registered as a Democrat. She should have either ran the campaign herself or hired a nonpartisan person to run it, a consulting company. I told Lally today the best person on her campaign team was her husband. He made these amazing videos. They had all kinds of social network support. He was the best part of her team all the way. And, I really believe Jolene would have did way better if she would have registered as an independent and took no help from the Democratic Party. I do. I really believe she would have did way better. Because the Republican Party could have piled up on her as a liberal, but with an I behind her name and not getting any help from the Democratic Party, Jolene could easily go, I'm an independent. Believing that diversity makes me a liberal. Believing in, LGBTQ rights makes me some crazy, I'd be like, I don't know where you guys are coming from. I'm running this campaign myself as an independent. They wouldn't have had any legs to stand on coming after her.
They would have had legs to stand on, but they probably wouldn't have been as strong, I think.
Yeah, because most people would be like, why are they picking on this independent?
And trying to labor
in a nonpartisan race.
Well, we can have another episode about how no race in South Dakota is really nonpartisan.
But I will say this, though, at the end of the day, even if all those planets would have fucking aligned, she still wouldn't have won.
Well, I think early on,
I just don't think so.
And
the numbers weren't there.
You and I had the conversation when we saw the St. Patrick's Day parade that I think she aligned too closely with the Democrats, a party in this state that is losing numbers at a pretty quick clip, and I don't know, if it's a function of that, they're out of power, so nobody sees any reason to align themselves with that. I don't know if
I think Paul calls them low-hanging fruit.
I don't know if the national influence has driven the South Dakota Democratic Party a little bit further to the left, where you've got some of the conservative Democrats who are now becoming
I can tell you
independents. But I do think in South Dakota and in Sioux Falls, the independents really do make up the middle ground. Because I'm saying there are plenty of Republicans who have left.
If she would have came out as a moderate independent with no support from either party, Republican or Democratic Party, she would have garnered the independent vote. Totally.
Highly likely, yeah.
And
at least a fair portion of it.
Issues and the workforce issues she talked about, she would have got the Democrats.
Yeah.
And, without talking about that, if there's a lesson learned from Jolene, if I was her, I would go register independent right now, so the next time I run for office, I'm an independent. I think the guest I'm thinking about having on, I haven't asked him yet, that's why I'm not saying their name. I'll tell you guys off air. The guest I'm thinking about having on our next show will be able to talk a lot about the Democratic Party with us, so just so you know. So we can dive deeper into that, because he has some opinions that are very similar to yours about the way that the Democratic Party is going. While we're talking about 10 Haken, there's been some things. Things that I've been impressed with him. As you know, I went and met with him. He had asked Teresa if I would come and sit and talk to him, and I said fine. I didn't want to at first, but I thought, I figured at that point, this is after the general.
I love your reaction with that. So surly. You're just like, fine, I'll go talk to him.
I was, because when she first asked me, I was like, I don't want nothing to do with him. And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, he's probably going to win. Like I said, if the planets would align. So I went and sat with him 45 minutes. The first thing I was impressed was he did listen to me the whole time. He didn't interrupt me. Yeah. It's kind of like that. Yeah. And, he's in campaign mode, so, you can take some of that with a grain of salt. But, so I went and talked to him about some different things, public input, budgets, and the one thing that I'll say about Paul, and this just comes from his background, I really truly believe the one thing he talks about that he will go after, he was on Inside Kellerland last night talking about it, is technology and making the city more efficient with technology.
I certainly hope
because our city website is a POS, and it sucks. You can't get documents. The search engine's a joke. I told him when I met with him, it was like, you go there, it's a wild goose chase, and they make you go all these different places to find things, and he's like, yeah, he just says unacceptable, and it should just be, when we want to talk transparency, there's certainly super easy things that the mayor and his directors can do that fix those things. Literally, you can do that overnight.
Yeah.
We're going to make the search engine better. Fix it now.
Turn the RSS feed back on.
Yeah. Put information out. Get documents. I told Paul didn't know this, but I told him the reason that Bruce messed up the signature on his petition drive for the administration building was because he went to the city website to get the petition, and it wasn't there. It used to be there, wasn't there. So he was in a hurry or whatever, and he went to the Secretary of State, and got it off there. Of course, Greco didn't check it, blah, blah, blah. We go over that again.
Well, but the point is that the Secretary of State has got a ton of petition forms on that office's website, where the city's only going to have very much city-specific ones.
Yeah, but it wasn't there.
Right.
It wasn't even there. And so I said that it's bad. And he wants to fix some things with streaming of the videos. And like I said, there's certain things that him and his directors can do right away that'll fix tons of transparency issues. And what are your feelings on Ten Aiken? I mean, I didn't vote for him. I didn't support him because some things he'd done in his past that I was not very impressed with. So, but I'm willing to give him a chance because he doesn't have a public record, I guess is how I look at it.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about it. He does not have a public record, neither did the President of the United States.
He had a record, though.
But
you're fired.
But I know I'm optimistic. Part of my looking for Mayor of Sioux Falls, looking to the Mayor of Sioux Falls, is that are they going to be a good partner with the next governor?
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a unique situation where we're going to have two new administrations, and I do think that the leader of the state's largest city and the leader of the state itself are going to have to really work together collaboratively and not sort of get in each other's way.
It's funny you brought that up. That was something that we did talk about quite a bit when I did meet with him. He said having that very, very, as he put it to me, having that very strong relationship with the state. He says, I just have to. For economic development in this town to happen, I have to have that relationship with the state. He did bring that up to me.
And I agree. And we're going to come at a time here where Sioux Falls proper is going to be over 200,000 people very soon.
Yep.
And,
a couple years.
And to have a strong advocate for growing jobs in Sioux Falls, in the Sioux Falls region, with the state when they're looking at inviting new industry, new business, and writing up those packages, being able to work well in putting those businesses and those industries where the people are, I think is going to be huge. And so I'm optimistic about that. I do hope that 10 Aiken does embrace some of the technology pieces that I would like to see the city embrace. Mainly a card reader at the ramp.
Yes.
over by the Washington Pavilion.
Have you brought this up before?
and as we're replacing the antiquated meters on some of the side streets and on Main Avenue, instead of going with the card reader meter, doing an experiment to see what does this look like if we used pay stations instead.
Okay, so I'm just gonna interrupt you here. Those ideas are fantastic. But
Thank you.
I'm gonna tell you
Thank
this.
you. Great show, everybody. Great show.
The enterprise fund of the parking system is going to be a little tied up for about 20 years, paying a mortgage on a parking ramp that we're paying most of.
And that is all the more reason why we should get the pay stations, because if I go in and I use my card in a card reader meter along Phillips Avenue, I swipe it in, I get it, minimum, I have to pay for an hour. Mm-hmm. I'm only going into Duluth Trading Company for about 15 minutes. Along comes you, right behind me. You got yourself 45 minutes of free parking.
I know, I love it. I do it all the time.
And if we have pay stations, there'd be no way for you to know if that parking spot is still valid or invalid. You'd have to go and pay. No more free parking downtown Sioux Falls, except for after 5 and on weekends, when it's already free. Keep that.
So...
But also the card reader, though, is a huge thing, because there are plenty of people who do not carry cash with them, and I've seen plenty of people pull in and try to back out. It is just, it's inconvenient and not very efficient.
The funny part about it is if I don't have, I just park and just see if I get a ticket. That's kind of how I roll if I'm just going to be going in.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mr. 10 Haken, he promised transparency in his campaign. Obviously, people promise a lot of things. I don't know how optimistic I am about that, but he did promise it.
Well, I think since transparency was such a big part of everybody's campaign, and 10 Haken certainly did discuss it a lot. I think it's up to the job of media, including blogs, to hold his feet to the fire on it. Make him keep that promise of increased transparency. The last thing that we want to see is another mayor getting the Golden Padlock Award, or at least being nominated for it.
Yeah, the mayor of Sioux Falls today, you heard this, Robert, was nominated, and he's you got to be nominated first.
He's a finalist.
And he's a finalist in the 2018 Golden Padlock Award.
Yep.
This is not an award you want to get.
This is the Razzie. Well, no, actually, a Razzie is more prestigious than the Golden Padlock.
This is about government transparency, and they basically busted him on the siding settlement. They're actually kind of wrong in their story. They said that we got half of the $1 million. We didn't even get that. That's just all on paper. We didn't get shit, to tell you the truth. We didn't get $1 million. We didn't get $500,000. We got our own money back. That's about it, folks. And then the second part of it was about the child dying recently down at Falls Park, and him saying that there was a safety audit, and that the Public Assurance Alliance had it, and then they didn't have it, and then there wasn't anything, and then there was oral reports, and but I made the joke on my blog. I said I was surprised he wasn't nominated for this award every single year of his administration. He's done so many things that have been so secretive. Then they had a quote. I don't even know where they got the quote. The Argus must have had it or something at one time, but he said something about transparency is all well and good or something, and then he says, but then it just ends and stabs you in the back. So apparently to Heather, open government stabs you in the back.
I vaguely remember him.
It's when you get caught lying.
Yeah.
He apparently feels like you're getting stabbed in the back. Well, when I get caught lying, I'm very embarrassed usually, and I'm like, damn it, I didn't get away with it. I don't sit blame other people for my lies.
My question is when the finalists were announced for this Golden Padlock Award, did they start drafting up a statement about how humbled and his honor is to have been nominated until they actually found out that this is
As of 5:00 today on the radio report, he hadn't replied to anybody's emails for comment about it.
And he probably will not.
Yeah. Why would you?
Yeah. And with a week left in office, I would be, think of that. But speaking,
how many people are going to come to the council meeting tomorrow?
It's his final meeting. I'm going to be
with
there.
spray painted golden padlocks.
Yeah, that would be funny. Maybe I'll wear my one from my bicycle around my neck. But speaking of his honor in his last week, what do you think of this whole thing? I mean, I really had to chuckle. And I don't know if I'm laughing at Paul, or if I'm laughing at Mike, or if I'm laughing at the whole situation of this Paul shadowing the mayor when the two don't have anything in common as far as I'm concerned. And why would he want to shadow Mike? And I was surprised that Mike was even allowing it. But
I think it's going to make for a hell of a sitcom pilot or a reality series.
I mean, doesn't it seem like, because Mike says he's taking a 2-week vacation when he's done.
This week on Mike and Paul!
And then I just see him leaving for 2 weeks and then, showing up in, some soprano kind of workout activewear, Under Armour jumpsuit, and just come
big scraggly beard.
See Paul, and come rolling in his office. You need any more help? I can hang out today, and just kind of be hanging out at the, and it's kind of like you said, sitcom, just go away. I wonder if Paul opened a can of worms, or if he's cleverly doing this to see what kind of information he can get out of him. That's what I think.
That's what I think too.
I think Paul's doing this latter, to get
to see what kind of information that the mayor is willing to share early.
Yeah.
And meeting with the directors to see, okay, what kind of information are they telling me, and then when I ask the mayor for it, what kind of information is he going to share, kind of a thing. I've got, no qualms with Ten Hagen, wanting to sort of dip his toes and just get himself, what's the word? On the same level, or get to know the city directors and sort of what do their departments do, getting a little bit more of an in-depth understanding of all that. I don't know if you have to be housed in City Hall to do that, or if you could continue to use your campaign office as a transition office.
Across the street.
Yeah.
There's a dry cleaner I think across the street to see if they got room available.
Yeah. Well, there's office space for rent right across the street. Rent it for a couple weeks. I think you're right. I think it's an information.
It's a fishing expedition, is what I think.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but I just imagine Paul and Mike and some of the city directors sitting at the conference table, and they're just having some discussions about stuff, and Paul's asking questions, and the directors are kind of answering the questions, and then it's Mike's turn. And it's Mike's turn to answer a question, and Mike says something, and then one of the directors goes, "Bullshit."
Well, I'd be waiting for he sits down with the directors and the mayor, and the directors give their, party approved answer, and then a little while later he has a meeting without the mayor and just the directors, and is like, so what's really going on? And it's like, oh, let me tell you.
Yeah. Oh, and there's already been a little bit of that going on. There's a few people that haven't figured out that they're probably going to get their ass canned because they were Heather appointees, very strongly Heather appointees. They sucked as a Heather appointee. But there's a couple of them.
Who appointed him?
What's that?
Who appointed him?
Well, Heather.
Okay.
These weren't holdovers?
No.
From the first 4 years?
And obviously he's got to replace Turd Baker. And
be nice.
I know. Turbox, sorry. He's got to replace Turd Baker, and then he's got to replace the Fiddle Faddle, because he's already gone. For
those of us who are not up on our Scott-isms, who's Fiddle Faddle?
Fiddle Faddle was the former city attorney.
Okay.
David Fifely.
Oh, okay.
I heard he had a box of Fiddle Faddle in his office, too.
Oh, nice.
That's what they said. Somebody told me that. That's on his shelf. And then he went to go run the public assurance alignment, golden parachute. And then, because apparently there's no term limit on that. You get to run it forever if you want to. And then Turbeck, he's the finance director who's leaving in June after he got his salary spiked over the past 2 years. So those two people he has to replace. But there's a couple other people that actually believe they get to stick around, and they've been already kind of Paul's butt already, as I understand it. But I have a feeling that
welcoming your handsome new overlord.
If Paul had any brains, which I believe he's smart enough that he's, as a person who used to, have employees and understand how those things work, I would assume that he's probably like, thank you for your service, but there's a new sheriff in town, and there's the door. So It's going to be fun to watch how that's handled. Usually how they handle those things is they go, you're going to resign today? What? You're going to resign today so we don't make a big mess out of this kind of thing?
Well, and I've always been a fan of the practice when an administration changes hands, or even if there is a re-election, that all department heads submit a letter of resignation, and it's up for the new administrator, the new mayor,
and then
whoever it to be, or to accept the resignation or not accept the resignation.
Oh,
yep.
That's a
kind
great
of a
idea. There's some people
that may be idealistic. That may be some only Aaron Sorkin thinks actually happens.
Yeah,
but it's not a bad.
Yeah, there are some people that are untouchable in my opinion. I believe since Good Road was just appointed the fire department, they ain't gonna do nothing with him unless Paul just doesn't like him.
I was gonna say, why would you at this point? Yeah.
And then I think that the police chief is probably pretty safe. I do know that. Here's a little inside baseball. I do know that Jameson has been helping Paul. He was helping Paul, when in the runoff. And Jameson had expressed to some people that he was going to keep the police chief on, but kind of give him, a certain period of time to, get your poop in a group. But there were some people that Greg was definitely gonna out the door, and there's 3 other directors that I could. Cooper, I think, is safe. He runs the planning department. He's supposed to retire in a couple of years. I don't think they're gonna kick him out. Obviously, Cotter's safe. Cotter basically runs the damn city anyway, so it's like he's like the backup mayor, in my opinion. You're not gonna want to get rid of him. And Cotter's always done a pretty decent job. But I think the health director, the IT essential services director, and the parks director could definitely be bye-bye.
I don't know enough about...
Some would say, when I bring up the parks, the other 2 people go, yeah, I could see that.
I could see
but the parks director, a lot of people
especially
are...
Haken's background.
Yeah.
Yep. But the parks director surprises a lot of people when I bring that up, and I go, the thing about Mr. Kearney was he was super loyal to Heather, and he was super secret keeper, and kept secrets like crazy. He expanded the parks department because his raises were based on how big his budget was. So that's why he was always expanding the parks department, because he wanted to get paid more. And, push for the pool, all the lies. We caught him in telling all the lies. We'd try to get that indoor pool built. So I don't know how Paul's going to take it. Does Paul want someone like that around and keep him around? Maybe he likes it. Maybe he wants someone like that.
Well, the big question on the future of the Parks Department is, under a new administration, will there actually be a no-mo list, and will that be on the new city website?
Exactly what we're talking about here. The guy was just, he pulled stuff out of his butt consistently and constantly. I was at the Levitt Pavilion groundbreaking ceremony, and the lady from Levitt said that we have one of the best parks directors in the country and how wonderful it is. I was in the background laughing. A couple people turned around and looked at me.
Ask him about the list.
Yeah, what about the mole list? But enough about him. I don't get to make those decisions. You know, like we said, Paul's in a shit show right now. He's going to have people coming at him in all different directions. He's never ran a city before. So he's going to have to doing a lot of soul searching.
I think. Well, I don't know so much about soul searching, but I think it would be, good to sort of, pump the brakes. Don't enact anything too soon.
No.
Just for the sake.
No.
Don't change for the sake of change. No. Pump the brakes. Get your bearings. Get a good balance, and then start taking a good hard look at some of the things as people come and meet with you. But don't
don't make any sudden changes right away.
The only sudden change that I think that could be made and would not be opposed by people is that damn card reader at that lot. It's a quick, cheap, immediate fix, and look at that. Day one, solving problems.
So, one more thing, unless you guys had anything else to add to the new administration.
No, it's a new day in Sioux Falls. I don't think anybody's too upset.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. That's kind of I am too. I'm benefit of the doubt. I asked Paul if I could be. When we talked a couple weeks ago, I told him I wanted to talk to him again after he won. I basically told him that he was probably going to win. He never responded to me when I said that. And I said I'd like to meet with you again sometime. And then I also I asked him after the election if I could be a part of the media roundtable. And he said I could. So I was pretty excited about that because...
Nice.
I might only get invited once. But, no, I don't plan to do anything crazy. But
you're a good voice for transparency.
Because the current mayor has not considered Bruce and I part of the media in every way, shape, or form.
I believe the words he probably used behind the closed doors to describe it as shoot on sight or
something like that. Yeah. So I thought it was cool that Paul, and we both kind of agreed in an email that, let's just start out fresh here, which I did. But like I said, if he doesn't hold his end of the bargain, and when it comes to transparency, he's going to hear about it.
Well, and on your blog, you weren't overly critical of Ken Bacon.
Yeah. I wasn't.
I don't think you were overly.
I was more maybe critical of the people that were doing all his dirty work for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
he definitely employed some hatchet people.
Yes.
You can be.
I mean, his campaign manager's wife, I guess, was on Facebook constantly just bashing the shit out of Joe. Yeah. I mean, that's questionable.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You can
You'll
be.
have that.
How don't you know that your campaign manager's wife isn't on Facebook bashing the shit out of Jolie?
Yeah. But just specifically to things that you can point to that. The campaign actual things where there isn't plausible deniability. You took a good look at his 100-day plan, his 26-point plan. I don't know
100-day plan. Yeah,
I don't know the names of the plans, but you had some good things to say. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
Oh yeah.
That you said, and you weren't overly critical of the actual plan. You can be critical of tactics, but that's not tactics in campaigning are far different than governing. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that you have been critical of his ability to govern or the ideas that he would bring to governance.
So we don't know yet what they're going to be.
Right. Other than his 100-day, 26-point plan, whatever it is, I don't know, 33 points of light.
Yeah. He wants to get tougher on code enforcement. That's the one thing I heard.
He wants to...
What does that mean?
Does that mean... Does it mean he wants to be harder on the enforcers?
That's what he should be.
Maybe you're being overzealous.
Yeah.
Let's scale it back. Let's try to help these people. Or does he want to be tougher on the actual offendees?
Which I just find we should just try to work with people is what I've always kind of thought when it comes to code enforcement. But, what do you do there? But
what do you think of the comments he's made about public input?
he doesn't get to make that decision for one.
Right, so, but, I mean, he'll help drive whatever they...
I think that some of the counselors have convinced him, because this is some of their ideas, that, like you said earlier, that pump the brakes. And I think some of the counselors are saying that. They're saying, let's just see how this goes. We've seen the interaction with the chair, the current chair, with the people, and we think that's part of the problem. And let's see how people react. And, I've even told a couple people, I'm not even going to go do public input for a while, I don't think, because I'm just going to kind of sit back and watch.
Yeah, there's not a lot of point in, yelling at him when he's still I'm still trying to find the keys to the desk.
or the new counselors or whatever, until you give them a chance, to kind of react to things. And, what's the point? And then, so I think they'll convince him. He doesn't get to make the decision anyway, but I think they'll be able to convince him to go, Paul, let's just give it a couple months, and then if it turns into circus here right away, then we're gonna do something.
Yeah, you got to do something. But like you said, it easily could be that the current situation with public input, and I'll admit I don't follow it closely enough, could be just the way it's currently being handled. And, some of the current policies that are happening that are getting people mad. I mean, if you're not doing anything that's not going to make anybody mad, and you've got it open and transparent and everything is going along swimmingly, public input's probably going to be like, go you guys.
Well,
or the one or two people who feel like, that they've been hurt by the city over something that's probably legitimate.
Yeah, and before we go into this last thing here, any comments on the outgoing guy? This is what I've been telling people. Don't really ever want to talk to him about him again on my blog. Just kind of glad he's gone. Kind of a sigh of relief. That's almost like, of all the things that you could do that were anti-citizen and so pro-corporate welfare and all that stuff, it's just it's almost like a sigh of relief. I am starting to compile, and I'll just put it in an electronic form, I think through Amazon or something like that, of all my blog posts, not all the blog posts about Heather, but the ones the big ones from the time, a short little reference to when he started running for office to the end. So that's kind of fun, and I'm gonna have a little commentary.
A little reference guy for the
because I think he's working on a book about his experience. So I figured I'll put mine together of what actually happened, because my blog followed it all the way, and I'm gonna start from the beginning and just start grabbing blog posts.
It's not a bad idea. You should write a little book. That's
it was just gonna be. Yeah. I'm gonna grab situations and I'm gonna comment how I feel about them today.
Compared to
That'd
that,
be interesting.
And what the outcome was, and
what happened.
Who were the players that you recall in there? That's interesting.
Like when he was running for office, I told people all the time that I was leery of him because, he marketed the most predatory credit card in the nation, and I just felt like, I didn't know a lot about him except for that.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me to go, do we really want someone like this for mayor?
Yeah.
And
my final thoughts on it. I've always sort of.
You voted for him too, didn't you, 8 years ago?
I don't recall, actually.
I think you did. I think you told me you were smiling.
I honestly don't recall. I know that I undervoted 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
I don't recall voting for mayor 8 years ago. I might not have ever lived in Sioux. Where the hell did I live? I don't think I even lived in Sioux Falls 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Where am I? What am I doing here?
But otherwise, I'm just kind of relieved that he's done.
I think the past 8 years in Sioux Falls have been a really strong 8 years in terms of growth and finding our own footing as a city and sort of having a renaissance. You look at the Renaissance Hotel, you can't give either all the credit. You can give him some of the credit, but that's been sort of a long time coming with some things.
There was a couple of people that had some pretty big wins over the Heather administration that weren't part of the Heather administration.
Yeah. I think my one criticism of him is if I were writing his his win list that he just released. Kello listeners, KSOO, Sioux Falls. The win list for Sioux Falls over the last 8 years. Sioux Falls. That's my best Heather impersonation. Sioux Falls.
Not bad.
Thank you. You know, some might say the tennis center. No, Sioux Falls, not the tennis center. I don't think that the sale of the rail yard in Sioux Falls should have gone down.
The most poorly negotiated thing
ever. As a win, and I don't know how it was negotiated. I know it's been a long time coming. But the fact
usually when you're negotiating to have the trains go away, that means the trains go away.
That's the thing. The trains are still there, right? And I know it's only
they're traveling more often.
Been like a year.
They're dumping corn all over the place.
The last 8 years, we have literally changed the skyline of Sioux Falls. If that wasn't
the developers have done very well under him.
If that wasn't his big win, was changing the skyline of Sioux Falls, then I think he misread the situation. What did the Heather years bring us? The event center that changed the skyline right away. After that, we've got a ton of new construction.
And
downtown.
if you watch the event center on a hot day, that's kind of constantly moving too.
Yeah, go get a Colorado brownie and watch it. But you've also got a ton of new construction, not only all over the city, but downtown especially. That that sort of revitalization, and it's going to continue, I think, in the new administration. But you've got Washington Square to be able to have worked with developers in order to do some of that stuff. I think probably is what he should have called his biggest win for Sioux Falls.
Yeah, it was odd that he picked the. I thought it was. I understood why it was on the list.
Right. No, I'm not saying don't keep it on the list.
I didn't understand why he thought that was number one.
Right.
I would have thought he would have said the event center for sure.
I would have, even if he just lumped changing the skyline of Sioux Falls with all of these great new construction projects.
Well, I don't know how the negotiation went with like the rail yard, but maybe that's the biggest item in his mind because that's how much he's had to spend that much time. Like when you're doing anything with railroads, it's just a nightmare.
Right. And it's the most recent that the city has had a direct involvement with. Right?
Yeah.
And so that is probably why he called it number one. But I think that he should have listed the event center as number one.
I think so too. I found
that was also debated and studied for a long time, and he just said, "All right, Sioux Falls, let's get this done, Sioux Falls, and we'll bring in Garth Brooks for 9 sold-out shows."
Yeah. That was weird. Anyway,
that's my final criticism of him: is he doesn't know how to compile his top 10 list.
Have you been here for 8 years, Robert?
No.
You've been here for what, about 4?
Yeah, like 4 or 5. Like I think I would have moved here about the time he got reelected.
Okay. So what are your thoughts?
Well, like when I left the state, I kind of thought, Sioux Falls I thought of as pretty stagnant, not like really that dynamic of a place or anything like that, but I don't get that vibe at all. And other people I've talked to through the podcast, just different artists and performers and stuff like that, I don't know if it's related to Huther or if he just happened. I don't know if we're dealing with a Clinton scenario where the big wave of prosperity would have happened anyway, or if he helped facilitate it, or if he didn't hurt it, or if it would have been more if he stayed out of it. Either way, Sioux Falls is going through like a serious cultural explosion / renaissance right now.
I would give more credit to.
Well, I think all of the previous mayors get a little bit of credit to get this to that.
But I would give it to the culture itself.
And I think with Huther in particular, I think his legacy is going to be complex because you've got kind of like, I'm putting my historian hat on here. You've got all the like historical figures who build the big monuments and stuff like that. But what was it like for the people, the little people that lived around all those giant monuments? And then who paid for like the debt afterward? Who gets to be his George Bush Sr., who gets to come in afterwards and inherit the bill instead of the legacy?
And that's the thing that he's brought up is that, the debt is actually... It's actually a little bit less than what it was when he came in the office. It was hovering at that $300 million place when he came in the office, and now I think
I'd say that's pretty good then.
It's about $290 now, I think, or around there. But what he doesn't say is that he created $200 million in new debt. So if he wouldn't have created any debt, which is impossible, virtually impossible, because there's always infrastructure projects. but let's say, you know, he didn't build the event center and some of these other things, that the debt would be right now would be at probably $100 million. And that is because all of these things during the 8 years he was in office, stuff that Munson and Hansen spent money on, mostly Munson, all those bills were paid off because of the scheduling of the payments. So it wasn't anything that Heather did. He makes it sound like he's
the benefactor of good timing,
right?
And I think that if he's got any political ambitions in the future, he hasn't done anything super catastrophic. I think that would prevent him from running for higher office.
Oh no, he's still viable,
right?
Yeah.
But that's an interesting story that you bring up. Is that he started as mayor with we'll just use your numbers, $300 million.
It's around there, yeah.
$300 million in debt to make the math simple. Mm-hmm. They bonded the event center, and he's still ending his 8 years, $10 million less in debt than when he started. Right. And that's including a new giant $115 million public facility.
The ads write themselves for that one. Yeah.
Oh, they do. And the new public indoor pool, and those things aren't cheap.
And then on top of that,
the roads are pretty okay.
He says our per capita debt is down. Well, of course, our per capita debt is down because we have 50,000 more people than
these ads are writing themselves.
Yeah, I know.
If you don't want him elected governor or senator, you better move on to your next topic.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm going to vote for him at this point.
4 years from now, I know who I'm voting for.
Oh.
Good timing. I mean, let's just leave it to that, you know. But Jody Schwan made a great point. You know, our roads were and she knows, she worked for Munson. Jody left City Hall the exact same time Mike Heather rolled in, and she was the Business Journal editor and has her own business now all the way up, so she's watched him. And she said it best. Our roads were rated 7 out of 10 when Munson left office, and they're rated 7 out of 10 today. He's
kept the status quo, and that's
status quo and maintained.
You've always given him credit on the roads. You've always said that
he's maintained them.
He's done a fine
job. And we
do
have the decent roads in Sioux Falls. 7 out of 10 for a municipality is really good.
Yeah,
especially in the Midwest. And so, you know, at least he's maintained that. Could they have been better? Sure, if we wouldn't have spent money on other stuff. The other thing that people don't realize is how many bonds and tax and fee increases he's had over 50. Of course, the council voted for him too.
Yep.
So he's not guilty. All he did is put him forward. They voted for him. And 50 tax and fee increases. And, 15, 17 bonds, something like that were taken out.
But the debt is still lower than when he took office.
Yep.
Because we've been increased. Because I talked to some people, I said, dig up your... I've had a couple people do this for me. And I haven't done mine yet, but I can almost guess. I told people, dig up your tax bill. If you're living in the same house that you were in 2010. A lot of people still are. Dig up your tax bill in 2010 and dig up your tax bill today and tell me the difference. And one of these guys, his almost went up, 70%, 100%, something like that in 8 years.
Which is
it's pretty crazy.
Which is a big, when you put it that way, it is percentage-wise, it's a big jump.
And then water fees water
fees have...
Yeah, and then on top of that, you have the school now district, which we won't talk about now, but, proposing $278 million, they ain't ever going to get that.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's like the energy companies. They always double the rate increase they want to the PUC because then they know the PUC.
Oh, they know game theory.
They know it's going to knock it
These
back
people are no
rate.
strangers to the Nash equilibrium.
Yeah. Someone brought that up to me. Yeah, and so we got that on the horizon. So if you think your taxes are bad, so I always tell people, I said, Heather may be ending this. Right, the streets the same they were when he came in, the debt the same it was when he came in.
Lower.
But your fees and taxes have gone way up. And another thing that you can look at is, look at how much spending has gone down since he's been mayor. It's, sales tax revenue. It's just it's just like a steady slope down.
Yeah,
it's because people are paying more. They're not getting, the raises aren't keeping up with their taxes. The raises aren't keeping up with the expensive goods. And they're spending less and less money on buying things because they don't have it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to take a look at that. It would be interesting to see your really good economists come in and find out what the impact of each of those things are on it, or is it that we're just really seeing a really, really bad time right now for bricks and mortar retail?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that's interesting, and I don't know if anybody really knows the true answer to it all.
Well, let's enough of this. I'm gonna get a headache.
Because you just wrote Heather's back once more in 20. I wish it was 2024 because that would write itself.
If that guy reappears on a ballot anywhere, I swear to God, I'm gonna throw up. I really will.
Because you're going to be so excited.
I was going to say, get your barf bag ready then.
Well, let's finish with something that happened. Well, it happened in April.
That's a lot of stuff have happened.
Yeah. It happened in April. I can't remember when they said it happened. We don't know what to believe because they ain't telling us shit about it. But the city got scammed.
Yes.
The financial department. The rumor going around, obviously this is a rumor. You heard about this.
No.
It was in the news.
They got spearfished.
They paid two people posing as vendors that they owed money. This is where it gets kind of suspicious. Two of their normal vendors were owed money. Two people posed as these vendors.
Yes,
wanting their payments.
A man in the middle attack, if you will.
Yeah.
These individuals posed as and invoiced as these two vendors who are legit vendors, and the city, without blinking, paid those.
Well, they changed. They gave them a new bank routing number.
Yep.
They said these are our new bank routing numbers. The city takes their new bank routing numbers, puts them in the system, sends them the money. So here's the rumor going around: the city won't tell us how much it is, but I have a feeling that it probably is this amount. The rumor going around that kind of seeped out. Gossip.
30?
$500,000.
Whoa, no. No, really?
Well, I'm getting suspicious that it's a high amount because I think if it was 30,000 or 5,000 or even 80,000, the city probably would have told us. But when they brought up the fact in the press release that they have an enhanced crime fraud prevention insurance policy.
Yep.
I'm like, what the fuck is that? And when they brought that up and said that the Public Assurance Alliance will pay us our money back that we got taken for, and if the FBI catches these people and can get the money, that the FBI will then give that money to the Public Assurance Alliance. And you're like, what? So it sounds like we were taken for quite a bit, is what I'm guessing, if we have to get a payment. Because if we were taken for even $80,000, the city would just have to go, we kind of have to write that off. But when you're
thinking we blew past our deductible, is what you're saying.
When you're talking how we need to get paid back for this, it's like we have a $400 million budget. We can't just suck up $10,000, and then you're like, this had to have been a lot of money. And then the other question I have is, did these city employees that did this, did they get in trouble? But better yet, who's checking their work? You can just send off payments and nobody else check. Because usually in a system like that,
well,
somebody's checking what you're doing.
In big organizations like that, though, it's a really common tactic to just send blind. I mean,
I understand sending a payment. I get that part.
But no, I mean, like,
changing the bank routing number without somebody checking it, that's weird.
That it's incredibly common from what I've seen in past jobs I've had. Mm-hmm. The giant subcontractor in the cities that I worked for, our poor accounting guy, he got 10 a week that were invoices that were not for anything, and someone in the cities just fires them off to like every big business they know, and eventually someone will accidentally pay, $10,000 or $100.
Oh, the phishing thing's common. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Oh, I totally believe that. But what are their checks and balances?
But I think you're right. I'm trying to remember back to my accounting days in college that there are, under the general accepted accounting principles and practices.
Did you call someone to make sure the bank routing number is supposed to change?
Generally, if somebody receives the invoice, but it's not always the same person who's going to actually pay it. Mm-hmm. Like, they can enter it into the system, and somebody else is going to cut the payment. But if a vendor is calling to change their bank routing numbers and it's out of the blue,
somebody should have checked on that.
Right, and if it's not a normal practice for them to be doing,
they said that the vendors changed their bank routing numbers quite a bit. Is what they see. They're saying a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So that makes it interesting. The other thing I said to someone was, the mayor just bragged not too long ago he had another win, but it didn't make the big win list, I guess. There's so many win lists, it's just hard to keep track. He should do like a calendar or something.
12 months of Heather's
wins,
12 top wins.
Didn't have to sleep on the couch tonight. No. And anyway, win for me, not for Cindy. Anyway, so a little off track, sorry.
Very much.
Sorry, I'm laughing at my own jokes. We don't have a laugh track, sorry. So
we could probably get one.
So anyway, now I forgot what I was talking about because I was imagining him. Never mind. So anyway, what I said. Okay, now I remember. The finance department increased by 20 people since Heather's been. Did you know that? He's increased the finance, but mostly business analysts. And he was bragging about the fact that they got this brand new financial software that I would think would have some things in it that would help with the whole double checking people's work and like going, okay, ding, 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 management, they're changing this bank routing number. Maybe you should look into this, kind of thing. Because they said they were using software from the 80s, which was bad, I guess. I always look at accounting as it's just numbers. I mean, what's the big deal? Anyway, so that's what surprised me on this is that with all this new software and all this new people, they didn't. It just seems like somebody wasn't checking someone's work, is what it seems like to me. And if it was $500,000, holy shit.
Yeah.
I mean, person can just change a bank routing number and send off $500,000 and everyone just kind of goes, oh, don't worry about it, we got an insurance policy. Well, guess who pays the premiums on that insurance policy?
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
So I wonder if anything will come of this with Tenay Aiken.
I think you should take a look into it. I think there should be.
Oh, damn right I would. It'd be one of the main things I look into. I'd be like, we're not going to have this happen again.
Yeah, and just like I said,
we double check.
Get his footing, and then just say, all right, we're going to enact a new thing. If somebody's changing the routing number.
Didn't Burger King have a thing for a while where they were having someone double check the food in the bags?
Yeah.
Remember that? They used to advertise that?
Call them and verify that it is. It is what they say it is.
Well, yeah, management. Have management call. Johnny down here said that you needed to change your bank routing number.
This is Mayor 10. Haken, just call it to verify you've changed your routing number? What's that about?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Caught one.
Yeah.
Throw it back. Fishing's over.
I told Lally today, I said, they ought to get Jesse Schmidt from the Better Business Bureau over there to train the workers on how to detect scams.
If somebody calls and claims to be the city's grandson.
And they want to pay a $500,000 bill in iTunes cards, be very suspicious.
Yeah. Maybe call.
Yeah, we built that.
Maybe call the city's daughter and find out if the city's grandson.
This is ABC contracting. Yeah, we'd like to get paid for that $3 million bridge we just built with iTunes cards. Oh, okay. No problem.
At least it wasn't Sacagawea dollars. Nothing against the Sacagawea dollars. That would just be really heavy.
Yeah.
Paul, can we pay in iTunes cards? Oh, man.
I use Spotify, but whatever. Cool.
Cool. But
that was awesome.
I'll just finish by saying that I think with the new council and the new mayor and the stuff that I know about Paul's past, it's going to be a lot of fun watching. Even if there's no controversy, it's going to be interesting to watch.
It'll be good 4 years, I think.
It will be. It'll be fun, and I know that Janet Brecky, thank goodness she got elected. She's got a lot of things she wants to put in the pipe. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch how the council...
And she knows what she's doing right out the gate.
And she knows what she's doing, and it's gonna be really interesting to watch how the other councilors handle that.
Yep.
And the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see sort of what kind of demarcation line comes in between the council and the administration.
But I'll have to give Janet credit. She's been meeting with everybody and letting everyone in on her ideas. I mean, she hasn't been... keeping her cards close to herself and saying, I'm not showing anybody.
Well, she's probably seen councils in action before and has an idea of...
And she's been talking to every single councilor about her ideas. She's been talking to the mayor about her ideas. She says there's no surprise that she's a big transparency, open government person. So
awesome.
And so you're not going to get any surprises out of Janet. And I think it's going to frustrate some of them because they're so used to working with Dinkelfritz, and where you never know what information you're going to get out of him,
No. Well, hopefully,
he can retire his couch.
Hopefully, in 4 years, we'll have more Sunshine Awards and less Golden Padlock.
Damn right. Bravo. Have a good night.
A production of the SiouxEmpire.com.